How we doing, folks? Your host Moose here on the Pitt Panthers Football Network as we bring you some news and notes from around the country and some big news for your Pitt Panthers as we advance into the offseason here at the end of Season 2 of our Dynasty. Big news as head coach Pat Narduzzi, after compiling a 20-7 record thus far in this Dynasty for the Panthers, has been renewed as far as his contract is concerned. He's gotten a 5-year extension from the Panthers. Great to keep him on board and to see the Dews try and lead the Panthers back to glory as they were back in the late 70s, early 80s. So he will be staying around. Not so lucky for some other coaches around the country. Paul Johnson was fired at Georgia Tech, and that means Lane Kiffin, former Central Michigan head coach and of course, notorious coach from around the country, has been hired at Georgia Tech, and they'll be losing that option attack, so something new to see at Georgia Tech. Doc Holliday, hired away in-state from Marshall, has taken the job at West Virginia with Dana Holgerson being fired. Joe Rudolph has come in as the Marshall head coach. He actually was a former coordinator for your Pitt Panthers. Jeff Horton, the old Clemson offensive coordinator, hired away as the Utah head coach. Boston College head coach Steve Adazio was fired, which means UNLV's head coach Tony Sanchez takes that job up in BC. Robert Prunty, Clemson's defensive coordinator, takes the NC State job, which means both of Clemson's coordinators have been hired away. Manny Diaz, Ohio State's defensive coordinator, hired away. And you can see, as far as the coaches are concerned, a lot of big coordinators were hired away. Brent Pry, Penn State's defensive coordinator, was hired, and you can see a number of different coaches lost their jobs across the country. Not a lot of big programs there. West Virginia was one of the biggest ones. Georgia Tech as well were really the most named jobs in the country as far as where guys would be removed from their positions. Brent Pry, we can see, taking over the Nevada job. So some coaches moving around, but not a ton of big names as far as head coaching wise really made any kind of moves as far as retirements or leaving or anything as far as that's concerned. You can see the moves around the ACC. 4 new head coaches in the ACC due to firings, and Narduzzi, of course, gets the extension for the Panthers. But Lane Kiffin will be in the ACC coach in Georgia Tech. So when your Pitt Panthers take on Georgia Tech, there will definitely be a character on the other side of the reins, the other side of the field across from Narduzzi, no doubt about that. Panthers extend their offensive coordinator as well, and you can see any moves with offensive, defensive coordinators there as we talked about. But the big news for your Pitt Panthers that we want to focus on are the guys that will not be with the Panthers for next season. So 10 seniors for the Panthers, losing the likes of a couple guys who had been dismissed from the team, Rory Blair, Jeremiah Taleni, but Avonte Maddox, a huge senior loss. Jester Wea, starting wide receiver, huge loss there. Quentin Wirginis at middle linebacker, a loss. 2 offensive linemen in Brandon Hodges and Alex Officer lost from the team due to being seniors. So some big names, big starting players that were lost, especially on the offensive side of the ball. A couple of offensive linemen, starting receiver as well. Panthers defensively, they lose their punter. They also lose a couple of solid contributors defensively, but the big losses were felt in guys that decided to leave early from the Panthers. So they had a number of players that left. We look here on Cardiac Hill, the Panthers SB Nation site. We see Jordan Whitehead is declared for the draft, so the Panthers will lose their top safety, arguably their top player on the team. Jordan Whitehead will go to the NFL draft. You can't blame the junior for leaving, but it's a big loss for the Panthers. He was great in tandem with Paris Ford, and you only expected them to get better, so the Panthers will have to improve there and try out a new starter. They also have their 3rd offensive lineman starter they'll lose, and arguably the best out of the bunch. Brian O'Neill, the redshirt junior, has decided to go to the NFL, so the Panthers will be breaking in a new starting left tackle in addition to a left guard and a center. So that entire left side of their line will be new this upcoming season with the loss of O'Neill. And probably the most interesting choice was Quadri Henderson deciding to enter the NFL draft. The Panthers, he was a solid slot receiver, but he really projects into a returner at the NFL level. He was absolutely electric for the Panthers. We know he averaged 36 yards a return last year and had a bunch of touchdowns. We'll see if that can translate to the NFL level. So, of course, best of luck to Quadri, but he will be gone from the Panthers. So that's another receiver they'll lose, and they're losing a huge target here. Both of their top 2 tight ends, Matt Flanagan, of course, leaving due to graduation. Chris Clark has stepped away from the Panthers for personal reasons, and he is not expected to return. meaning the Panthers are going to be very, very thin at tight end this year. So that honestly could be the biggest loss for the Panthers, losing a tight end who was their number 2 pass catcher behind Jester Weah. So their top 2 pass catchers now will not be returning. Shantez Moss was dismissed from the team for a disciplinary reason. Pat Narduzzi did not release the reason why, but Moss will be gone. He was the Panthers' 3rd leading rusher as far as running backs go last year, but he really had not gotten any play time since about the 4th game of the season. So a loss, but not anything that the Panthers will be too worried about. They do see some transfers as well, guys that really didn't have a future in the starting lineup. Kayzon Pugh, defensive end, had been passed up by new players such as Sean Wolfgang, a couple of big defensive ends rumored to be in the Panthers class of 2018 as well. So Pugh will be transferring to Howard. Thomas McVitie transfers to Mesa Community College. He was 3rd on the pecking order as far as quarterbacks concerned, and with a couple of younger guys ahead of him, there was no time for him to play, and so he transfers out as well. And a shocker here, another receiver leaving for the Panthers, this time Reuben Flowers, a guy who, he was about the 4th string receiver for the Panthers last year, had 11 catches on the year, was solid, had a couple big games, 4 catches and a victory the loss against Virginia Tech, 4 catches and a touchdown, a big 37-yard grab you'll remember in the game against Miami. He elects to transfer as well. It's not sure where he'll be going, but he will not be with the Pitt Panthers next season. So that is a ton of roster turnover that the Panthers are going to face. They got 3 guys leave early to the draft, in addition to the guys that hopefully will get drafted out of the senior class. Chris Clark has to step away for personal reasons. 3 players transferring out of the program at this moment in time, and then a dismissal for disciplinary reasons. So a number of players leaving the program. That is going to leave a ton of open spots for new recruits. Right now, it looks like the Panthers have up to 20 open scholarships for the class of 18 to come in. And it's going to be really interesting to see who the Panthers will be able to bring in. The class of 18 is expected to be near about 20 recruits, and hopefully with all of these late additions, the Panthers will be able to find some solid players to be able to take those open scholarships, because when you find about these changes late on in the season, you got to change your targets and find who's available at that point, who hasn't been committed yet. So it'll be something that Pat Narduzzi really has to take note of and try and find available prospects to fill those open scholarship spots. So that's what we've got for this episode, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hashtag Panther Nation. We appreciate all your comments. Hashtag H2P. Hail to Pitt. We want to know in the comments what you think about these roster moves. How can the Panthers cope with these losses? And what do you expect to see from them next year, knowing that they're losing their starting tight end, 2 of their top receivers, and another depth guy as well. Their 3rd string running back, starting lineman's gone. Their starting safety's gone to the draft. They lose their 3rd string quarterback, a 3rd string defensive end. So a lot of guys leaving the program. Let us know in the comments what you think. As always, we'll see you in the next episode, where we'll take a look at that recruiting class of 2018 and get introduced to the newest Pitt Panthers. And of course, remember, you'll have the opportunity, if you haven't already, to potentially state your name into this career mode as we take a look at those new recruits. So as always, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Hail to Pitt. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.